guys, it's the Warhipster here, and today we're doing a painting tutorial on the Auralan Wardens from the new Lumineth Realm Lords range. Now, I have primed this particular Auralan Warden, just because I'm gonna mess that up over and over again if I can't try and say the whole name. I've primed this particular Warden in Wraithbone. And this is because we want that kind of nice soft cream texture on that robe rather than a kind of colder one, which is what Grace here would give us. But what we want is slightly brighter armor. So the first color that we're going to work on is all of that armor, and we're going to be using some thinned down Corax White. And what we want to do is we want to take some of that Corax White on our brush, and we just want to paint this all over those armor panels like this. Don't worry about the scale mail. We just want the flat armor panels to be coated in this Corax White. Like that. And with that Corax White applied, our armor is now ready for when we're going to do the edging. It's just a lot easier to do it first, rather than trying to kind of paint the Corax White in and around it and then do the edge highlighting. That's not what we like to do here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to work on all the soft robes, excluding this kind of central bit of his kind of skirts. So the color that we're going to make is we're going to make a roughly 8 parts contrast medium to 1 part Wyldwood. And the reason for this is that the Wraithbone has already given us quite a nice base to work from, and we want to have quite a nice shade on there, but we don't want to kind of use Aggaros Dunes or Skeleton Horde because we don't want it to be just kind of too yellow. So we want it to be a nice kind of light pale brown, bordering on cream. So we take this mix and we make contact with the model up the top, and we're just going to use these big broad brush strokes like this all over those robes like that. And the contrast medium just helps it flow, but also really softens out that Wyldwood colour so that it's not like a really dark brown. And next up, we want to take some Wraithbone. We want to give all this cloth a highlight using this Wraithbone like this. And with that highlight applied, we're now going to work on the trim of the armor, and the color we're going to be using is Liberator Gold. And all we want to do is we want to basically use this Liberator Gold to paint in all of the trim like this. You just want to take your time here. And with that Liberator Gold applied, what we want to do now is we want to shade all that gold, but also the armor. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to take a roughly 4 parts contrast medium to 1 part Wyldwood mix. And we're going to effectively use this as a recess shade around all of that trim. So just picking a place to start. Actually, we'll just start up here. So we want to get this all over all of that Liberator Gold, but when it comes to the white edges, we just want to basically want to run it into the recess. So like here down on the helmet, we just want to get this all over the gold, whilst also running it into the recess like that. And with that Wyldwood applied, what we now want to do is we want to create a mix of roughly 1 part Retributor Armour, 1 part Stormhost Silver, and 2 parts Aggaros Dunes, and thin it all down with a tiny little bit of water so it's nice and consistent. And then we're going to effectively just give a highlight to all of this gold using this mix like this. As you can see, it kind of gives you this really sparkly, but kind of just off silver or white gold, as it were. Something that Liberator Gold isn't quite bright enough for. But if we use Liberator Gold to make this mix, it becomes just, it doesn't have enough impact in terms of the way it looks. It just comes out very silver if you use Liberator Gold. So that's why we use the Retributor Armour. And we use the Aggaros Dunes to just reinforce that that yellowiness of it. So once again, just take a little bit of this. And around here you'll see what I mean. Like that. You can see it's very similar to the way the box art looks, especially over that Liberator Gold base with the Wyldwood shading. So you want to go around doing this on all of the gold, and then we'll come back. And with that done, it's now time to work on the silver details. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some thinned down iron hand steel, and we're going to apply this to all of the silver. And so this is areas like the scale mail, his sword blade, and there's a little banding around here as well. We want to be this colour. Other than that, there's not a lot of silver details. And with that silver all applied, we're now going to take some thinned down Retributor Armour, and we're going to use this on all the remaining metallic details. So on the box art, this is just that really warm gold that you can see on some of these areas. So areas like decorative areas on the scabbard, the hilt of the sword, the inside part of this headpiece in here, and the frame on the back of his backpack, and we've got the casing of the lantern and the sigil on his chest. And with that Retributor Armour applied, we're now going to start shading those metallics. And the colour that we're going to use first is Gryph Charger Grey, and this is for all of that silver. So we want it to have a sort of bluish greyish sheen to it, like this. We don't want to use loads because we don't want to completely overwhelm all that silver. We just want to really kind of just almost stain it blue, this blue-grey, like that. And with that Gryph Charger Grey applied, what we want to do is we want to use some Guilliman Flesh. And this is going to be for all that Retributor Armour gold. So we want it to be nice and warm. Get that really kind of pinky red gold. Like that. And with that Reitland Flesh shade applied, what we can do now is, because we've got this Guilliman Flesh all over this thing, and try as hard as you might, you've probably got a little bit of Guilliman Flesh on it. It doesn't matter too much, because what we're actually going to do is we're going to make this, we're just going to finish off that kind of soft part of the lantern, and we're also going to paint in this little gem up here on his helmet. And the colour we're going to use is a roughly 1-to-1 mix of Fulgrim Pink and Corax White. And what we want to do is we just take a small amount of this, particularly on the lantern, and we just want to coat this Fulgrim Pink around the flat of this lantern using this colour. And what that Guilliman Flesh has supplied, that kind of pinky shade for us. So we can just brighten this up like this. And with that done, it's now time to highlight those metallics. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the gold, and we're going to be using some Liberator Gold to highlight these. So you just want to use this Liberator Gold on all of the edges of all of that Retributor Armour that we shaded with Guilliman Flesh. Like this. And with that Liberator Gold applied, we now want to highlight all that silver using some Stormhost Silver. You just want to get that edge of that blade nice and shiny, as well as the edges on the scale mail. Like this. With that Stormhost Silver applied, that means all of our metallics are now finished and looking amazing, if I do say so myself. Right, now what we want to do is we want to work on all of the blue details. Now the colour that we're going to use is Space Wolves Grey, and this is to establish our first shade and our pre-shade, and also get us our first highlight. Now we want to use the Space Wolf Grey down here on the tabard thing, on his inner skirt. We want to use it on the centre part of these trailing standards up here, and we want to use it all over the headdress as well. Don't worry about the sections on the headdress that you can see on the box art. We will put those in, but for now we just want to get this Space Wolves Grey. I want to get this all over these details. So what we want to do is we want to make contact with the model up there behind the scale mail, and just pull the Space Wolves Grey down like this and get a nice even coverage of this colour all over these details like this. It's quite a subtle finish over the Wraithbone, but that's exactly what we want. And next up, once that Space Wolves Grey is dry, what we want to do is we want to now darken all of those colours down and also get those stripes in the headdress done. So the colour that we're going to use is Akhelian Green. And what we want to do is we want to take it on our brush, and we also want to use this Akhelian Green to colour in the rest of those kind of details. So areas like the little tassel hanging off his wrist here, and the wrap going down here on the shield, but also on the icon on the shield itself. So as I say, we're taking this Akhelian Green and we're using this on all of these details. Just getting that little tassel done before we move on, because we don't want to let it dry until we're finished with it, like that. And then down here, what we want to do is the same way that we did with the Space Wolves Grey. We want to make contact up there underneath the scale mail and just pull this Akhelian Green all the way down in a big broad brush stroke like that. Make contact and pull it down. This gives us a nice smooth finish. As I forgot to mention, with that Akhelian Green, what we want to do on the headdress is we actually want to add these stripes. Now the easiest way to do this is to actually look at, I've got a little hair there on my brush. Anyway, what we want to do is we want to look at where these little gemstones are and basically colour in the strands around them. So there's one there, and we want to get up to there and come all the way down and do the same thing again on the other side, and then just colour in around it. And we just want to do it along each of those sections where the gemstones are. So you've got 5 to do on this guy. And you also want to do the same thing on the back. And then next up, once that's done, we want to take some Ultramarines Blue. We want to use this in the recesses of all of the cloth, just leaving the edges of that Akhelian Green shining through like this. And as you can see, it just gives us that nice royal blue that we've been after. So you want to do this over the tops of these strands as well. We want to do it on that shield. And we want to do it over the banners as well. And with that Ultramarines Blue applied, as you can see, the model has taken a massive leap forward and he's starting to look, well, like a Vanari Auralan Warden, whatever they're called. There's so many words. Anyway, what we're going to do now is we're now actually going to start highlighting all of this blue. And the colour that we're going to use first is Lothern Blue, and this is for all of the dark blue, not the Space Wolves grey on the headdress. We're going to highlight that in a different colour coming up next. But what we are going to do is we're going to do all of this dark blue, and as I say, we're using some thinned down Lothern Blue. And we don't want to use loads at a time. And what we want to do is we just want to pick out all the sharp edges on all of this darker blue. Like this. And with all that Lothern Blue applied, we're now going to take a small amount of Fenrisian Grey, and we're going to use this to highlight all of these blue areas. So what we want to do is on the kind of darker blue where we've added that Lothern Blue highlight, so we just want to add a bit of this Fenrisian Grey to the tips and to the corners on the sharpest edges of these highlights. Like that. But also up here on the headdress, we just want to apply a bit of this Fenrisian Grey to each of the strands. So we just want to hit the tips of these, of the rest of it. So you just want to go around like this. And with that Fenrisian Grey applied, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take some thinned down Corax White. And we're going to use this to colour in the edged details. And just to kind of correct any of the blue blobs that we might have placed by accident on the banners. Like this. As well as just to catch that little bit of decoration that goes across the middle like that. We also want to use this Corax White to just re-layer inside these sigils up the top. Of each of these banner poles. Like this. And next up, with that Corax White all applied, what we want to do is we want to take a small amount of Skeleton Horde. We want to apply it inside those sigils. And with that done, it's now time to work on all the dark leather details. And so what we're going to do is we're going to be using some Cygor Brown, and this is for the boots, for his gloves, and for this strap here, and for the inside of the shield. So, like I said, we're going to be using Cygor Brown for this, not Corax Brown, that doesn't exist. Or Corax White, that would be a disaster. So what we do is we take our Cygor Brown, and we just start painting this all over these details. Like this. We want a nice dark leather for this. Hence why we're using Cygor Brown. With that Cygor Brown all applied, we're now going to paint in all of the different brown details, kind of the wooden ones. And the colour we're going to be using for this is Gore Grunta Fur. And this is for the banner poles and for his scabbard. So what we do with this Gore Grunta Fur is much like we do whenever we're trying to do large, open, smooth the surfaces. We make contact with the model and just pull it down in one big broad brush stroke. Like this. And then just use the brush to just move that excess around. And with that Gore Grunta Fur added, we're now ready to do his face. So the colour that we're going to use is Guilliman Flesh. And we want to be really careful here, because we don't want to get this all over that gold or that white. So we just want to very carefully get this all over the skin. If you do make a mistake, you can just neaten it back up with some Corax White. And once that Guilliman Flesh is dry, we want to use a small amount of Flayed One Flesh. And this is just to pick out the sharp areas of his features. So areas like the tips of his nose, the top of his brow up here, the cheekbone that you can just about get access to, and his lips, like that. And with that Flayed One Flesh applied, next thing we're going to do is we're going to use a small amount of Wraithbone to colour in the whites of his eyes. Like that. And with that Wraithbone applied, we want to use a small amount of Leviadon Blue. This is to do his pupil. Let's just take a teeny tiny bit of this on our brush. And we add a little dot of it. Right in the middle of the eye. Like that. And with that face done, all that's left to do is to finish off his base. Now, the colours that we're going to be using are Gryph Charger Grey, Space Wolves Grey, and Skeleton Horde. Space Wolves Grey, I'll say that again. Gryph Charger Grey, Space Wolves Grey, and Skeleton Horde. Now, the way we're going to do this is we're going to start by taking some Gryph Charger Grey. And we're going to coat this all over the vast majority of the base. Well, of the rock on the base. Like this. Once you get to a certain point, it's entirely up to you when that is. I think I'm approaching it now. And you've got enough Gryph Charger Grey for your taste. What we want to do, and that's enough Gryph Charger Grey, is you want to wash the brush, then grab some Space Wolves Grey, and just using that Gryph Charger Grey that's already on there, you want to kind of mix the two colours together on the model. Now each time that you do this, you're going to want to wash your brush each time you go back to getting some more Space Wolves Grey, because you don't want to contaminate your pots with the different coloured paints like this. Go. So now that we've got a different tone in there, what we then want to do is wash the brush one more time and take a bit of Skeleton Horde and then just start once again just mixing it in with the Space Wolves Grey and this Gryph Charger Grey whilst it's all still wet, to give you that really nice kind of broken, dirty stonework and marble effect. And next up, we want to use a small amount of Wyldwood. And we're going to use this on the soil around the base of the grass, just here. And with that Wyldwood applied, we want to take some Militarum Green and we want to use this on the grass. And with that Militarum Green applied, we now want to use some Stirland Battlemire to just colour in the rest of the remaining open space on the base. And once that Stirland Battlemire is dry, what we want to do is we want to take a brush load of Tyrant Skull and we're going to use a dry brush of this paint all over all that Stirland Battlemire and across that stonework like this. Just being very gentle with it, just to kind of give that highlight. We also want to do this across the tops of the blades of grass, like that. And with that dry brush applied, I've added some tufts to the base, and so all that's left to do is to do that rim, and the colour that I'm going to be using is some thinned down Steel Legion Drab. You could do this whatever colour that you want. It might take a couple of thin coats just to really build up that colour to a nice smooth finish. And with that, the Vanari Auralan Warden is complete. I'm blown away by this Lumineth range. Honestly, I think these miniatures are breathtaking. There's so much character, and they're so very elven. I adore it, and the color scheme, brilliant. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to support me further, like these legends on the screen, you can do so. Head to patreon.com/warhipster or go to ko-fi.com/warhipster. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Do all that good stuff. And if you want to be kept up to date, make sure to click the bell icon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.